one of the things we were talking yesterday, kind of preparing for this conversation, so easy to say, so hard to do in our space because you're fighting all these biases. You're fighting like what products you have access to. I truly believe our industry suffers from using fiduciary as a marketing term versus an actual definition like you would see, legally obligated to do what's in your client's best interest. One of the things that I think we both share is like a fiduciary should have as many possible tools, financial tools in their toolbox that are vetted by something, or regulated by something. And then a true fiduciary ideally should have access to as many tools as possible and then take as unbiased of lens as possible to figure out what can serve this client at the highest level and then construct a financial plan. Okay. First off, before I move on from there, anything you disagree with, and by the way, this podcast is not for everybody that say the same thing. If there's different pieces that you disagree with, let me know. But like if we start of that from a base kind of understanding, thoughts there, disagreements there?
No, I mean, look, I think it's most simple form. A fiduciary is someone who's supposed to put their client's interests before their own. So they should try to remove the best they can any biases that they might have. But I 100% agree that we all do come up and people have their bias. And I think even outside of our industry, I think that it's actually pretty well documented that by the time we hit certain ages, like our biases become so strong that it's very hard for us to ever change. And so I think this is why you have like these like social media battle royales of people who like they believe their way is the right way and they're not open-minded to anyone else's way. And, look, at the end of the day, I used to use this saying a lot when I was in private practice, but I would tell people, financial plans are really interesting. Like the best financial plan for everybody is one that works. Like it gets you the results that you want and you feel comfortable with, because if you don't feel comfortable with it, you can't stick with it. It doesn't matter. Right. So like, this is where I think these biases are tough because you could make almost any plan work, right? So someone could be like, I'm hardcore fee only, advice only, I'm hourly only, or whatever, right? And they could build a plan that would, in a one-dimensional world, that would work just fine. I know advisors who are insurance license only, all they sell is fixed index annuities, income annuities, MYGAs, et cetera. You can build plans that will work. Like it'll get the client the outcome they want. Like meaning like their goals, hit their income goals and whatever. Neither one of those is probably one that most people would feel like not everyone's going to feel comfortable with them, right? So it's like there's lots of like, kind of personal bias our clients have, right? From their own experiences, their parents' experiences.
Yes, that's a good point.
And so I think that there's I think it's really important if anything that to me, a great fiduciary advisor is they should be extremely flexible and not try to cram everybody into one box that's like their bias box, right? It should be, unless they're transparent about it, which is like, listen, I offer fiduciary advice to this very defined niche client, and they all get the same solution, but I reject 90% of the people who want to work with me because they don't fit into the solution I offer. I don't know too many people that are telling 90% of their prospective clients to go somewhere else, So I think like no matter what we do, I 100% agree with you that the right approach is one where you have like a lot of options and you try to bespoke the solution for what works for the client and they feel comfortable with and they're going to stick with it. Can't do those two things, then I'm not sure you're being a real fiduciary.
Yeah, we were talking about advisor biases, but it's so true. The client or the prospect also walks in with their own biases. And if there's certain biases they have, they might eliminate some of the tools out of the toolbox for you.
100%.
And I think a great advisor helps anybody work through those. And you're obviously going to try to educate, but sometimes there's certain things that are just had a bad experience with that thing, never using that thing again.
There are people, I remember in the Annuity Gator days, right? Because obviously a lot of these people, they were doing research on annuities. They probably had some insecurity around market risk. And think about that time period, 2010, this is shortly after the financial crisis. People were still licking their wounds pretty badly. There were people who, if you just asked them very straight up, like, listen, how comfortable do you feel with money in the stock market? And there were definitely people who were like, I would never put a penny ever in the stock market. If I look at a statement that's down even a penny in a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever time period, I'm out. I can't do that again. Like I'm too deep of wounds. I have too much scar tissue. I'm not going there. And a lot of planners would be like, well, that's not what's best for you though. And so let me go ahead and prescribe. And I used to, coach advisors, and I'd say, listen, I think we all know that we should probably maintain a balanced diet. We should get lots of sleep, drink lots of water, probably best not to, drink too much alcohol or partake in, crazy drugs and dangerous activities, right? Like we all know like what should be a healthy lifestyle, but the reality is like, there are clients that are going to come to you and say, listen, Brad, I love cheeseburgers. The cheeseburger is my like manna from heaven. That's what I really want. And if the advisor's sitting there being like, great, but let me change your mind and get you to love salads, Brad. Like that client's never going to hire you, right? So instead it's like, okay, well, what could you offer them? Maybe just blow their mind with the greatest cheeseburger in the history of cheeseburgers, right? And make it with the best ingredients and, freshest, whatever preparation, et cetera. That client's going to be better off, I suppose. And, you deliver to them like something they feel comfortable with. And again, many advisors, like I think they push their opinions on their clients. They talk about what they think is important. They do seminars, podcasts, blogs, whatever on what they think is valuable. And they kind of forget that at the end of the day, the easiest thing to do is just find people who are, I mean, it's like a Ray Kroc story, right? Where he'd say like, hey, what's the secret recipe if you want to have a successful McDonald's franchise? And all the franchises are like, great location, unlimited marketing budget, best food. He's like, you just need hungry people. Just have a lot of hungry customers. They'll buy lots of food from you, right? And I think as advisors, we sometimes forget that probably the bias that matters the most is the clients. And as a default, they will 100% like opt out of certain product services. And so why bother? Like you're just wasting your time and theirs. And they're probably never going to, even if you can convince them to do what you're telling them to do, they're the type of people who are going to become very, very hard to work with down the road because they're going to have reluctantly agreed to what you sold them. And every opportunity they can to second guess and rub it in your face and try to get out of it or create problems, they likely will. So it's just best to, be a fiduciary and ask people, what's important about money to them.